Hey everybody, first day of second semester, and my Race in the United States class is back this semester, which is always really exciting. I love that class. I love the conversations that we get to have, and I've already started with some great stuff today, talking about a particular Snapchat story that got circulated last year in our district that was pretty racially explicit. Um, but yeah, so off to a new start. Always great to get some new students, and just feel like there's a little bit of a shift in the year, from the day in day out, and so I'll miss students that I had in my other class in Washington State history that are gone, and but now I get to know, you get the privilege to get to know a few new people in those classes. So I'm excited to continue doing that. We in Race in the U.S. today, we kind of went over your typical syllabus, entry, textbook, like all that stuff. But then we introduced the compass as a tool for having racial conversations. So if you're unfamiliar with what the compass is, this is a tool that's created by a Pacific Education Group in Singleton that trains districts and businesses and all sorts of different organizations on how to have courageous conversations about race. And the compass is one of the most basic and simple tools, but it's one that I utilize in my class as well. And it's got 4 quadrants, right? So the first quadrant is your believing, right? And so that's like your sense of morality, what you believe is right or wrong, and how that shows up for you when you see or hear something. So I think like if you hear a story about a child being assaulted, like right away we go to our believing quadrant where there's a sense of wrongness about that, and it's unjust, and we want to do something about it. That's the believing. And then in the top right corner is your thinking quadrant, and this is where you show up with your brain, and you're trying to process just the facts, and I want to intellectualize this, and I want to go through and look at the reasoning and the logic, and question things like that. That's showing up in the thinking. Then there's the feeling quadrant, which is your heart, your emotions, how you feel about something that is said, or how you feel about something that you read, and kind of going there. And then finally, the last quadrant is the acting quadrant, which is where you're ready to do something, you're ready to change something, you're ready to do something tangible in response to whatever you see. And so we kind of introduce this tool, and you may be like, okay, like, yeah, different ways, but it's just helpful to try to center yourself where you're not so caught up in what you believe is right and wrong that you can't think logically about it. But that also that you're not thinking so logically and all up in your brain that you forget the humanity and the feelings of it. I think it's healthy to try to stay centered and to make sure that you're centered, especially before you act, right? Before you come down into that quadrant and you act and do something, it's really helpful to make sure that you have a firm idea of where you're at in your beliefs, that you've thought things through, and that you have your feelings you've taken stock of your feelings and you know where they're at before you go into acting. Because a lot of times what we see, and especially in racial conversations, and you can see that with what's been happening over the last week and a half, is people show up in one of those quadrants off balance, and they're completely in their feeling, or they're trying to rationalize everything without seeing anybody else's perspective, feeling, or humanity, or they're just so caught up in belief of right or wrong that they don't bother to visit any of the other quadrants. So I think it's an effective tool. I'm going to continue to use it, right? It's helpful for me to check and see when I see things of, where do I find myself, and how do I make sure that I'm centered, that I take stock of what I believe, what I think, what I feel, and how I should act. So hopefully that's a helpful tool. Check out Pacific Education Group if you'd like to learn more or bring them into your district. And we'll see you next time.